Oh, it says I'm streaming. Let's go ahead and check it out. See if I actually am. And tell Twitter. I am streaming Game Dev. And you can watch. It's very relaxing. Paste. Yep, looks like the stream is running fine. Alright, we should be ready and running. So, today what we're going to work on is getting the crew working properly. There are a lot of elements to this that are still kind of thrown together in ways that don't make sense, and we're going to fix them up. Just as an example, if we were to load up a ship, like, say, this guy here, first off, once it's loaded, you actually don't have any crew. We've got to go inside and tell it that we want a new bunk room to get crew. But even then, we've got the problem that this isn't how we want crew to work. We don't want every single crew member to be a crew member that you pick out. There should be a large number of extras in any ship with more than maybe 5 crew members. So what we're going to do is we're going to convert this over into a system where those are crew slots, and crew slots are handled differently. They're not just random crew prefabs that happen to exist. A crew slot will be its own thing. So to do that, we're going to start with the room in question. And that's down here, and this one right here. We'll drop it into the world. Cruise on over to it, take a close look. You can see that it's kind of crooked at the moment. Let's go ahead and straighten it out and move it to a place where we can work with it just temporarily. You could do this in a new scene. There's no reason to do it in this scene, but there's no reason not to. So as you can see, I've got the 5 crew members dummied up here, and those dummies turn into proper crew. Instead, what we're going to do is we're going to create a crew proxy, and that will create a crew slot. And the crew slot can have a crew member in it or not. If it doesn't have a crew member in it, there's just an arbitrary person that will pop into existence whenever they need to, and you'll have the option of keeping whatever random person shows up there. But you don't need to have all of your crew mapped out ahead of time, because that would be really, really heavy in terms of processing and memory and stuff like that. You don't want to try and figure out the 900 crew members anyway. By the way, if anybody knows how to get Windows 10 to stop doing that, where it will pop up random things at the bottom of the screen forever, let me know. So, if we look at these slots, they are bed slots. And here in the Mixin Furniture bed script, what we're going to do is we're going to delete the crew, and we're going to add in a new script that doesn't exist yet. So down here, we're going to create a crew slot. Grind, grind, grind. And there we are. A slot usually on a bed where a crew member can be, but may be A, turned off, B, faceless until required, or C, a generated crew member chosen by the player or random. So what we're going to do is we're going to need to have a link to all of the various things that can be generated as crews. That's a little bit more complicated than it sounds, because right now we only have one. We've got that one body. It's all human. But in the long run, we're going to have the ability to have multiple kinds of bodies, multiple species, all sorts of stuff. So we're going to need to have some kind of generation mechanism that keeps track of the various avatars that you can have. For now, we're just going to make it a list. I think I actually already have a script for this. Species, there it is. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to use the species system. We're going to link to species. Each species is an arbitrary list of avatars. So That will allow us to do a lot of really great things with customizable species, customizable beds that only work for certain kinds of aliens, that sort of stuff. It should be really fun, you know, next year sometime. But I'm hoping to get this out at the end of February, so we're going to try and get a little bit of work. February? Whatever. Oh, I've got to put this in the Avatar game space here. Avatar namespace. There we are. Allowed species. And then what we're going to have is the ability to just create any given species at random. So public player avatar, no, custom avatar, generate avatar, or generate crew member. Generate avatar is fine because we've been calling it an avatar. And we're going to go ahead and make this something that we can click on. So what's it called? Menu item, context menu item. I think that's not it. It's context menu. There it is. And we'll just call this, cool. Sorry, we've got a lot of extra things there that I've never noticed before. We'll call this create avatar here. And that way we'll be able to generate these avatars either via the game space or via a debug call. And that'll be nice. Easy way to do it. We're going to need to have a public custom avatar current member or current crew member. Current avatar is fine. So what we're going to do is we are going to check and see whether current avatar exists, and if it does exist, we're going to just remove it. Hey, Jojo Jet. So if current avatar does not equal null, then destroy current avatar.gameObject. And then what we're going to say is current avatar equals allowed species. And now we're going to use our shuffle command. Our shuffler is the ability for us to go through any given set of random values without repeating before we've gone through all of them. And in this way, we will guarantee that we get a good split between all of the species. And if you want to weight which species is more common, you can just add them into the allowed species list more than once. That's a lot more simple than trying to come up with percentages and stuff. So we're going to get ourselves shuffler int bucket, shuffler range, and it's going to be a species as the tag, the min of 0. Actually, it should be species and the name of the bed, just because otherwise, transform.parent.name. Otherwise, it will be otherwise it will be invalidated if you change to a different kind of bed, and if you had like multi-species ships, you'd end up with some really wonky behavior with a randomizer. We don't want that. And then for max, we're going to use the allowed species max, obviously. So even though we don't currently have anything besides one species, what we can do is we can generate just one species now and fill in the rest later, as long as we lay the groundwork. And then when we could say is choice, and then we can tell it to generate the species. Now, I am trying to remember if I have that programmed in. I should, right? Here is the species. Here we are. Custom avatar static, and then we pass it the species value. So that's fine. There are other ways we could do that. I guess this is fine, though. So we just say species dot custom avatar. Why is that not triggering? Oh, it's called random. I'm just an idiot. My brain is not working very well today, so you're going to have to bear with me while I try and kick it into working. The other option here is we should be able to tell the species individually that we want to do something. So public void generate. And what we'll do there is we will just run this. return species.generate. And of course, this is going to return a custom avatar. I'll paste this in here. So if phenotypes equals null or phenotypes.length equals 0, throw an error. Otherwise, instantiate any one of our phenotypes. A phenotype is just a mesh. So every species can have an arbitrary number of meshes within it. For example, in the long run, I'm going to have a different mesh for children, very, very heavy people. Hugely beefy people might have their own different mesh for muscular definition, stuff like that. So what we're going to need to do is set that up now so that we can plug that stuff in later. And JojoJet, just to ask, you don't see any sort of weird rippling in the video feed? Because I'm still seeing it on my end. If no one else is seeing it, then that's fine. JojoJet says, have you played Don't Starve? I played it briefly. I'm not a big fan of those kinds of survival games these days. Minecraft pretty much blew them all out of the water for me. It burned me out on the entire genre. And JojoJet doesn't see any rippling, so we'll just keep pushing forward. There we go. And when we go back to the crew slot, we can tell it that we just want to do current avatar equals choice.random, or choice.create. What was it called? I am just brain dead. Generate. There we are. That'll give us the custom avatar we need, but it's not going to be in the right spot, in the right spot, or doing the right thing. So current avatar dot game object dot set parent, or set game object current transform dot set parent, and then we're going to want to set it to us, so transform, and tell it to go to exactly where we are, facing the direction we are. JojoJet says, do you see it on your screen or in OBS? I'm seeing it in the dashboard on Twitch, but I'm using the old style dashboard, so maybe there is a glitch in the old style dashboard. I could probably actually, I'm not doing any 3D modeling today though, so I should update that. I should probably switch over to the new style dashboard now that I have a moment. They kind of sprung it on me by surprise, and I didn't have time to get used to all the confusing new features. Alright, so that should allow us to create crew as we need them. And what that means is that here in this bunk, we're going to have to get rid of all of the crew we've created and instead put in crew slots on each of these beds. And largely what that means is that it's going to be fastest for us to delete these beds and recreate them, because otherwise we're going to have a lot of tweaking to do on each bed, and they're all going to be identical tweaks, so there's not really any reason to do that. So let's go ahead and drop in a crew slot. Boom. However, the crew slot is in the avatar directory despite not being in the avatar namespace. I'm going to go ahead and put it in the avatar namespace. We can change that later if we'd like. I'm never sure when I use a namespace tag whether to put tabs in, because people have done it both ways in professional environments I've been in. So, you know, I'm going to go ahead and assume that you should tab it, because it doesn't make sense otherwise, but whatever. Here we are. Oh, and then we can just return the current avatar. Nothing is likely to ever want to catch the current avatar, but we're going to want to generate it anyway. Oh, we can put in some stuff. We can make this something we can actually hook into. I think that would be a good idea. Let's go ahead and do that now. So we're going to go ahead and create a custom event here. Public class Unity crew event descends from Unity event custom avatar. We're going to call it a custom avatar event. And I think that I've screwed this up. I've forgotten how to do this. It's been so long since I've had to that I don't remember how to. The problem is if I put it in here in the namespace, it's gonna barf. But we'll try it anyway. We'll see it and then maybe put it in its own file or something. Anyway, I'll put that here. Public custom avatar event on avatar generated. And then down here we'll say on avatar generated dot invoke and pass it our new current avatar, and that will do. Might want to have an on avatar deleted as well, now that I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking about mods and then hooking into this, and boy, it would be a real pain in the ass if you couldn't tell what was deleted. But another thing here, the crew slot, this is an individual crew slot activity. I may want to make this a static set of variables, because that way you don't have to know. You can add in mods that are for every possible room that ever gets created, rather than just for the specific room in question. But we're probably going to want to tell the current avatar what sort of crew bunk it's in. So let's go ahead and set that up. Public, no, that didn't work. Crew slot. Crew slot. Tooltip, automatically set up if you spawn in a bed. Yep, thank you, Jojo Jet. That is what I'll do if this barfs. But I'm hoping it won't barf. There it is. Should work, unless it barfs. Will you barf? You did not barf. Hurrah! It's super weird and finicky about mono behaviors in namespaces. But there are 5 errors? What errors? Oh, these are like portrait texture errors. That's fine. Gonna work with that in the long run here. See ya, Jojo Jet. So right now, I don't believe we have any species. Let's take a look here. Do we have a species? We got human haircuts, but we don't have humans. So let's go ahead and create our human species. Human species. We'll call this human alpha, just because otherwise I'll get it confused with other kinds of humans as I develop the various meshes that we need. So these alpha humans are going to be a kind of species like this. Doof. And for our phenotypes, what we're going to drop in is a link to the avatar prefab of the crew. Here it is. And we're going to go ahead and call this an alpha human crew. A human alpha crew. And we'll call these human alpha haircuts. There we go. And that should work. So if we look down here at the human alpha species, we now have something very, very simple. And this super simple layer is going to be something obnoxious for us to deal with now. But when the game starts to bloom, and we have to start slotting in new species and new meshes and all sorts of fun stuff, we want it to be as easy as possible. So this is future-proofing. Eva Luigi says, none of his messages got through. Sorry, Eva Luigi, this is the first message from you that I've ever seen. In all of history, all of the previous responses I made to you last week were prophetic. Either that or it's just today that it's broken. One or the other. So we drop this into the allowed species box, and that should be all we need to do in order to get this thing operating. But what we could use is some kind of invisible marker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add in a new... I'm trying to figure out what the best thing to add in would be. Just because I can't see where they're facing in the bed. If we drop in a human alpha crew like this, you can see where they're facing. You see how that's like, I can't maneuver them around and rotate them while I can't see them. But if I put them in, I can see them pretty well. It's just that it will look bad and be bad in reality. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab the body, which I think is there. That's it. Just going to drag the body over onto the bed like this and delete the actual complex elements. Now this is obviously a body that is not particularly well oriented in comparison, so we're going to go ahead and set it up. That was odd. And that should be correct. So we have this dummy body here, and what we'll do is we'll just hide it once we're done. So it'll help us just to set it up. What I should do is set up a display marker as an editor object, which pops up like just a glowing display element. Let me add that to my to-do list. And if Evil Luigi, if you're trying to talk, I haven't read anything from you except for that one. Where's my pen? There you are. Alright, so this checkbox, need to do those though. That's fine. So this is 2:1:17. Replace placeholder bed bodies with editor handle. But for now we'll just do this because it's a little faster. For the exact moment we're in, well, that was interesting. I duplicated it, but it didn't come along for the ride. Maybe I'd be better off doing that now, because it doesn't appear that that mesh cares to follow the rules of physics. Oh, that's weird. Well, it's not a hard thing to create that sort of handle. Let's go ahead and do that. So here in the editor, we've got a variety of things we can do, but it's been a long time since I have to do something. Evil Luigi says he's not talking anymore, which is one of those things that you say to get a computer to explode in Star Trek. I'm trying to decide if this is really the best thing to spend my time on, but I guess it's probably faster to just do it. I do have to look it up, though, so we're going to go ahead and do just that. Look up Unity widget, Unity custom widget. Extending the editor. Gizmos. Gizmos, that's what they're called. They're not called widgets, they're called gizmos. My bad. So I need to have a Unity Gizmo tutorial. Wow, it's been forever since I've had to use gizmos. Custom Gizmo tutorial. I got a new tutorial on how to create. It's not there anymore. Great. No, they're not using gizmos. That's stupid. Using handles and gizmos. Here we are. Sorry, this is why I didn't want to do it, because I knew it would feature me kind of looking around, and great. Now there are a whole bunch of videos on how to do it, and none of them are even vaguely viable to watch while I am trying to do work. It's super basic stuff. I just need like a sample. Ah, there it is. Put gizmos in a... Wait, is this not an editor script? Does this get put in the actual object? Really? Let's try it. Function on draw gizmos. Gizmos dot draw circle. Draw, there's no circle. Draw, oh, it's a sphere, of course. Draw wire sphere above us by 1.5 meters. So transform dot position plus vector3 dot up times 1.5, and we'll give it a radius of 0.3f. And we'll just see. Oh, it's not. That's JavaScript. Bastards! Don't give me examples in JavaScript. And I bet it'll show up if I click. Oh, I can't multiply the vector3 and the. That was odd. Okay, so now if I select the gizmo here, the bed, and you can see that there is a white sphere above the bed by 1.5 meters. Let's go ahead and make that 1.7 meters, and we're going to want to also draw a forward vector. So gizmos.draw, I can't remember what a frustum is. I think what I want is a frustum, but it's a lot of work to actually build it, so we're just going to use a line. Alternately, we could draw 2 more spheres as the eyes. I think a line is probably better. So transform.position plus vector3.up times 1.7f plus our 2, the same thing. Vector3 vector3 head equals transform.position plus vector3.up times 1.7f. There we are. That'll be a little bit better. Let me just say head, and head plus transform.forward. All right, let me go back to being able to see Twitch chat. And JoJoJet has some things to say. Yeah, and there we are. JoJoJet says that I should put if Unity Editor in front of this. Really? I don't think that that's necessary in this case. I think I had to put an end here, right? Yeah. I don't think that's necessary, but why not? There's no reason not to. So let's go ahead and take a look. Come on, bed. There we are. So that is forward for us, is it? I think I mean to say up. And JoJoJet's complaining about Voyager and the motion blur. I never got to really enjoy Voyager for a variety of reasons. One of which is the very, very strange captain. I mean, I'm all for Captain Janeway in theory, but in practice, she was kind of weird. Not very Star Trek-y, in my opinion. She was really, really aggressive and hard-nosed at times when I thought she should have been much more welcoming and upholding Federation values rather than the military rule of law. But, you know, people liked it, and a lot of people think that Janeway was an excellent captain. I'm not going to argue with them. I just don't think she was very Federation-y. There we are. So now that we've got these gizmos working, we don't have to worry about this needing to have any kind of mesh attached to it to give us any sort of visuals. And we can just set it up like this. Now, the problem with this right now is that the characters that we're building don't have very good eye targets. They are super generic eye targets, and that means that they're going to look off in some random direction or maybe just stare blankly. So we're going to have to deal with that if we want to have these characters feel realistic. But that can wait, I think. Yeah, she was not my favorite captain. Her policies were really wonky, and definitely showed that Star Trek was going in a direction I didn't much appreciate, and it continued to go in directions I didn't appreciate forever after that. Very disappointing. But on the other hand, I am now making a game that holds the virtues of my favorite virtues. So there we go. So the crew slot is now going to be able to be spawned in no problem. And what we're going to do is we're just going to hit play. And we'll be able to see these crew slots live and in person here. And we should be able to debug them into spawning an avatar. There we go. See, we got an avatar. Hey, how you doing? You look a little bit yellow. Might be something wrong with the skin texturing. And then, to test it, if we do this again, it should delete that avatar and create a new avatar, and it does so. It takes a frame to delete, which is something we're going to have to, remember to do. Now here we've got some feet through the floor action, which just should not happen, period. No, wait, the Z is at negative 1.49? That's interesting. Well, we can adjust the height of the feet and stuff later. We got to figure that stuff out in the long run. But for now, this works. This is fine for the moment because we can take each of these and tell it to generate a crew member, like so, and they generate just fine. And that one is at the correct... Oh, that one's floating a little bit. It looks like there is a bug in the root bone translation for our deforms. I'm gonna have to look into that because the feet should be on the surface. I set it up specifically so that they would be. It might be that we're overriding that with our set parent. We'll have to look into that some more later. Look into feet pause. I need a new pen. So this will work as our new system. We're going to go ahead and just move it back into place here and apply that. So in this situation, we've got a couple of problems with the basics of... oh, look at that. You see how they're not rotated correctly anymore. So we're going to have to use translate.up rather than vector. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself. What was I saying? We have to work with this in terms of getting this to function in a way that allows us to build our crew members. Right now, this bunk room doesn't volunteer the fact that crew members are available. So what we're going to have to do is create a list of how many crew members we're allowed to have, create an object in our HUD which tells us how many crew members we're allowed to have, and details like that. And JojoJet suggests that feet through the floor and floating feet are in fact just physiological, normal elements for her species, which would be fun if I could get away with that, but I can't. So what we're going to do here is the crew slots are going to keep track of all of the active crew slots on board this given ship. One way to do that is to register with a static element here on the crew slots. However, if we do that, we've got to worry about what happens when multiple ships are spawned in, or when you've got a ship and a space station. We want their crew sections to be separate. and therefore it might be best if we keep track of the crew slots at a ship level. So what we're going to want to do is have a new static event here, which we're going to call on register crew slot. But that's not going to be a custom avatar event. That's just going to be, well, it has to be. Trying to figure out how to do this in a way which will work out in the long run. Now, there's always a risk here where you can go on for way too long, and you probably shouldn't. You don't need. There's a line, and it's a thin one, between planning too much that you don't, between planning just right and planning too much. People who just code ahead without thinking at all are going to have a problem later. But similarly, people who spend all their time thinking about the best way to do things never get anything done. So won't that be annoying? Custom crew slot event. Here, and this will be a custom crew slot event. That's not how you spell it. There we are. And what we'll do is we are going to just go ahead and have it as an awake command. Public void on destroy. Well, that didn't work, did it? There. We could also say unregister crew slot rather than delete. I think that might be best. Or deregister, unregister. We'll go with delete. So this will just arbitrarily shout, hey, there's a crew slot. And we don't have to worry about whether or not that's crew slot. I spelled it wrong twice. We're going to have some merry crew members if we have nothing but crew slots. Or crew slots. So this will just shout that there's a crew slot. The problem is that it's going to shout every single time we look into the inner area, because we disable and enable these, and that should keep flickering the on destroy and awake, or the awake. The on destroy should be okay, but we're going to hit the awake multiple times, I think. So let's go ahead and check and see. Debug.log awakening, and then we'll just shout the name here. And let's just go ahead and see whether or not flickering it on and off is a problem. So, play, tab, Corvettes. We want the rooms. There you are. Put them here. Console, clear, and then bang in. Clear. And then this is going to be our new bunk. Boom. So if we take a look here, it copies a bunch of the fields. These are things we're going to have to debug later. Let's just go ahead and collapse these. So awakening bed 0 once each, that's fine. We're going to go ahead and tweak out to our outer view and then back in. Okay, so it doesn't reawaken. That's good. So we don't have to worry about it reawakening every time we toggle things in and out. Great. That's great. This will work fine. Bye, Jojo Jet. Don't sink through the floor. So that should allow us to quickly allow anyone to check when a crew slot is existing or not. Over in the ship, we'll keep track of all of our crew slots. So to do that, we're going to want to actually just select our ship. There you are. And we have a lot of different values that we can use here in the ship. You can see that the ship is getting a little long in the tooth. There's lots and lots of values in here. It might be worth creating a new ship element for the crew specifically. You can see we have a crew list here, but it's super basic. I think it's probably best to create a crew management system. Let's go ahead and do just that. Ship crew, or just crew manager. We'll go ahead and drop that onto our ship template. Boom. Open that up. Close down everything but this guy. And then open up the ship. So that didn't open up the ship. I said open up the ship. There we go. So what we're going to want to do is replace the crew with the crew manager. So that's pretty easy to do. We just have to track down the crew here and comment out these. Well, hold on. This is not quite what we need. This is a custom update where we detect how many people are aboard and subtract the supplies and water. That's something we actually want. We're going to have to deal with that later. So let's go ahead and put in to do integrate with crew manager. And we'll come back to it in a minute. So here is the old crew system, and it works with a mission system that's super old. So we're going to comment that out as well. Super old. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and just comment out this entire thing. Now a stub. Debug.log error. Accept mission on ship not implemented. We inherited a lot of this stuff from an older system, so we're going to just go ahead and not use that stuff. There we are. This is what we want to delete here. So instead of having a crew, we're going to just have a crew manager. Public crew manager. Crew manager. And here we're going to have just a very quick public int. Total crew. We'll probably turn this into something more complex later, but for now what we're going to want to do is have this register with the overall event. So they also have an on destroy. That's going to register with the crew slot events. The problem is that awake won't get triggered if the object isn't currently active. So we're going to have to do two things. We're going to have to first register for any sort of event. So crew slot avatar.crewslot .on avatar generated. No, it's delete crew slot. Yeah, so we're going to have the delete crew slot and the create crew slot. So register crew slot. Add listener register crew. So I'll go ahead and put that in here. Void register slot crew slot new slot, and this one will be delete slot. Register slot, and the other one is delete slot. And we're going to need to include the avatar namespace because I don't want to type avatar that many times. crew slot array or list. Slots. And yeah, that'll do. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and fill those right now. So we're just going to say slots.create from array. There's a to array. There's no from array. Well, we can iterate over it. So crew slot array existing equals get components in children crew slot true. And then what we say is for each crew slot slot in existing slots.add slot. Here in register slot, we only register it if it doesn't exist. So if slots.contains new slot, then return slots.add new slot. Down here we say slots.remove new slot. There we are. And here in total crew, we change this over into a getter. There we go. That should do it. Yep. So now we have a crew manager that can keep track of all of the crew in our ship. And that will be nice. So when we look down here, we can see that we have a crew manager floating here, but we don't have it assigned yet. But unfortunately, it is not done because we have to actually get rid of this system here. The crew visuals. This is old. This is archaic. To be honest, we should probably not even have a crew visual any longer. Let's just comment. Let's find all of the references to the crew visual here. Find references. So there is there in the ship's ship visual. Okay, so there is some reference to the crew visual, but it's super archaic, and we're going to delete it. So let's go into the crew visual here and delete it. We can delete this whole directory. Hurrah! Goodbye, ancient, archaic crap. Okay. Now we're going to see who panics. The namespace person could not be found. Yep, that's fine. We're going to go ahead and, well, we're probably going to bring back the namespace person later. But right now we've got this issue where we have mix and mission component stuff going on. And where our missions are very primitive at the moment, but it looks like we're going to have a lot of entangled elements. We got to do a lot of work here to try and work all of this stuff out. So here, we're going to just do it right now. Int crewnum equals crew manager dot crew, total crew. Good. Let's keep working through these myriad errors. Here we've got one where it says ship.crew.length, where we're going to replace that with ship.crewmanager.totalcrew. And then we're going to take a look at, for the crew visual here, we don't have any. They don't exist anymore, so just delete them. That can't be all the errors. There's got to be more errors. Really? Is that all the errors? Keep it lightly connected, and stuff does tend to work out, but I feel like there is stuff I've overlooked, and we're going to have something bite us in the ass. Well, let's find out. So what we're going to do here is load up a ship, but keep in mind that the current loadout doesn't recreate the barracks. So in the end, what will happen is there's going to be no crew in our barracks. See, 0. But that's to be expected because the default barracks don't actually have crew slots. But we should get them now. There we are. See? 5 beds. And that should, in turn, start detracting from our supplies as they eat through the supplies. But it doesn't appear to be. Well, we can work that out later. To be honest, the whole supply limit stuff is a soft gameplay constraint anyway. I could remove it and the game would still be fine. I'm not going to remove it because I think it makes for... Well, actually I could remove it. I'm trying to think of the best way to handle this. Obviously, in a more hard science fiction environment, you do want to keep track of how long your crew has. But most of my game, most of the Galactic Line, is focused on technologically advanced spaceships. I've been focusing on really, really primitive spaceships to start with, because those are super easy. But what I really should do, perhaps, is just have crew capacity objects rather than supplies. I can think about this a little bit later. Rayo Nocturne says, is this C or C++? It's C#, and it's in Unity, so it's a little bit, it's got a lot of dependencies and stuff. Unity has a lot of built-in libraries, and so I'm using C#, but I'm only writing a portion of it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to integrate that new crew system with our crew HUD here. Right now, if we load up a ship, like the same one that we did before, and we load up a crew bunk, we do load up the crew bunks, but we don't load up the crew anymore. We can manually load up the crew if we go down into the ship and manually select a bunk. Where are the bunks? There you are. We can right-click and do a debug to create an avatar. There is an avatar over there, and that will presumably pop into a... Yeah, see there. So now we have that portrait texture popping up, but we don't have any way to do that, and we are missing just a list of how many unportraited crew members there are. So what we're going to need to do is have a new element which keeps track of the number of red shirts, the number of unnamed crew members aboard your ship. And if you click on a button, you can turn one of them into a named crew member of your choice. So that's what we're going to do right now. This here is the button we have been using to shrink and grow our overall crew measure. You know, the full crew system. What we're going to do is we're going to translate this into a larger object, and we're going to redo the animations so that we have a different object that comes out when it's shrunk, rather than just flipping the arrow around. That way, this object here can be both a shrink arrow and a new element, which keeps track of how many crew you have and allows you to spawn new crew. So, this is not being selected. Why are you not being selected? Hello? Oh, it's triggering the help background failsafe? The help background failsafe should be way in the back, right? Why is it so far forward? That's an unusual error. Don't think I've ever noticed that before. Well, should be fine. That's it, right there. The so-called button. We'll call this the shrink button. That's going to break the animations right there because for some reason the animations are stored via name. But we're going to want to make this shrink button into something substantially larger. You can see the outline of the object that we actually put the crew portraits into. We're going to want to move that to the side. We don't have any interest in butting it up that closely. So let's go ahead and just make it like 80. There we are. Gives us a little bit more room. 120. That'll give us plenty of room. You probably can't even see that on Twitch. It's like this very faint gray line against a dark gray background. But basically what I've done is I've just moved the HUDs over to give us enough space to put in a new element, this shrink button, and in addition, we're going to want a new empty object. Create empty, here we are. We're going to call this the shrink element, and we're going to go and put it on the far left like this. And we're going to go ahead and make it just not exist, like so. Map it perfectly to the corner there, and then when we drop the button in, you can see the button is currently linked to the corner as well. Should just naturally work, no problems there. And this element will also contain a new UI object, which is going to be a panel, I think, for starters. And this panel, we can do the same thing, link it to the corner, and give it a size and a width, like 60 and 100. And this is obviously not the right spot for it. Good news is it's super straightforward to edit this stuff until it is in the correct spot. I've got a lot of slowdown for some reason. I'm not happy about that, but you know, it's fairly straightforward. It might be that I have a lot of slowdown due to I actually have no idea why it would be this slow. It's super slow, whatever the problem is here. I've got slowdown like you would not believe. Let's go ahead and set the width to 80. That should be enough. So we're going to go and make it opaque and change the rendering background to one of our custom rendering backgrounds. That's probably a good one. Just so that it doesn't look quite so default. Wow. Wow, I'm getting like 4 frames a second. This is... I honestly don't know why it would be running this slow suddenly. None of the changes I made should... Whoa! None of the changes I made should have this kind of effect. Huh. Let's go ahead and save this and reopen it, because this is unworkable all of a sudden. Saved. And now let's go ahead and change to a different scene. Are we still getting slow down here? No, this is fine. So we'll change back. That's not the right scene. That's the right scene. Feels okay now. Yeah, I don't know what that was, but this project has been open for 3 weeks straight without turning off or rebooting, so maybe it was something about that. Anyway, this portrait HUD panel here is going to be a list of how many crew members we have that are red shirts. So we're just going to go ahead and put in some, we'll name it something like the red shirts panel. And we're going to add in a UI element text. Bluey. I'll move it down. Put it in the center. Make it a darker color. Make it bold. Call it something else like red shirts. Now this is not going to require as much space as I've given it, but here's the thing. In the long run, we're definitely going to have to split the red shirts into different categories, like an engineering team and that sort of stuff. So this category is going to be not just red shirts and a number. It's going to be, this is how many engineering crew you have, this is how many science crew you have, that sort of stuff. It's probably worth getting that started now in terms of the visual. And we can work out the specifics later on. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to create a new panel within this panel. And we're going to call it a mask. We're going to make it a mask. There we go. No, that is... Oh, that's correct. Yeah, it's a mask. We're not going to show the mask graphic. We're going to call this mask. Inside of the mask, we're going to create another panel. And this one is going to be our slider. It's not a slider, it's a scroll rect. That's what they're called. You can make this the same as the mask. Yeah, I think that would be a better choice. Let's go ahead and make it the same as the mask. There we go. Delete the panel. Put in a... Actually, I should put that panel back in because that's pretty much right. We're going to want to have the panel at the top like this. There we go. And it's not going to have a specific size height. So there we are. We're going to give this a content size fitter. That means it'll expand arbitrarily as it has stuff in it. So we're going to do this. And we're also going to go ahead and add in a vertical layout group so that it will automatically expand down as things unfold. Should be fairly straightforward. We're not going to be forcing them to expand their height. And we're not going to be showing that image. So this is going to be our content. Here on the mask, which we're going to rename as the scroll, we're going to go ahead and put the scroll in as its own viewport. And the content here, movement type elastic, no horizontal. There we go. So let's go ahead and add in some basic lines of text of some kind. Panels, everything is panels all the time. This is going to be a child, sorry, it's a, it's a layout element, that's what it's called. Perfect. We're going to have a preferred height of 30, something like that. But the problem is that it's not properly reacting to our elements here. We have this, I'm going to turn off the help window for now. We'll turn it back on later. We have this panel, this content is supposed to work correctly when we have panels. It's supposed to automatically use their preferred size vertically, but this panel has a preferred height and it's not getting used. Or is it? It's just invisible? So there's the mask panel. And there's the random bit of text that we needed. I'm trying to figure out... Oh, I see. It's not the right width. I said to force expand the width, and for some reason it's not doing it. Is that correct? That's still not correct. Something screwy going on. We'll just give it a forced width. Preferred. Oh, that doesn't make any sense. Why wouldn't this have the correct size width? Well, we'll go ahead and just force it for now. So there is the beginnings of our content. We're going to want to bring the scroll down so that it's not quite at the top there, maybe even more than that. And we'll put that text box back in like this, bring it up to the top here, scroll it down to like this, make it size 12, make it bold, make it darker, crew, just crew is fine. So we're going to have a couple of these panels in our crew element section. We're going to have one which is the overall crew, and that's the one we're going to start with. Later on we can add in all sorts of additional teams and passengers and whatever else we need, but for now we're going to just have one. Now that long ass setup that I did is specifically to allow us to scroll it. So if I hit play here, you can see that I can scroll this crew list. See? And that's going to be important if you ever have lots of teams. But we are going to just adjust this. It's right now pretty spaciously spaced. Bring that down a little bit. Let's go ahead and put in some visuals that make it look nice. So switch out this background element for another one of our custom ones. Probably the same custom one, just because otherwise it will look a little bit odd. And we'll give it just a little bit of color to make it pop just a little bit. Later on, we'll redo all these visuals, I'm sure. But for now, they just need to work and set the tone for when we go back and we fill in them later. Fill them in later with better visuals. We want all of the mechanics to already be there and already work. So this is going to be Total Crew. And we're going to add in 2 text boxes, one of which is going to be a label and the other one of which is going to be a number. And it may be that we need to expand this space because it is, I mean, these are pretty small, places here. I mean, if we hit play, you can see how small this is. It's friggin' tiny. So we may want to expand it. And so what we'll do is we'll make this entire Red Shirts panel wider, like 100. And then we'll just start to adjust these various pieces. The Total Crew here, this is going to have to be wider, like 90. But we can also make it a little bit taller, like 40. There we are. And what we're going to want to do is make this text fit nicely inside of the system. So we'll call this Total Crew. And we can actually get rid of the text box that I spent so much time putting in there and move the scroll back up to the top, because that will always be there and it will look fine. Can we bring this up to 14? Just barely. All right. So we'll duplicate this text box and bring it down here, and we're going to have the number here. And we'll just go ahead and make the number a right justified number. And this is a trick that you learn pretty quick. If you are going to be doing anything where numbers might be compared, right justified numbers are much easier to compare than left justified numbers, because then you get to see the most significant digit sticking out. And it feels much more natural to me. That should do, but we don't have any ability to actually have these values mean anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new script. And this is going to be the crew display, the crew overview UI. The crew overview UI, we're going to dump it onto this stage here. And there you are. It's going to have a couple of small elements to it. Close this down. Not AI, UI. Public text number. Down here in start, we're not going to be needing to do anything. We'll go ahead and set that number. Call this number text. Scanning. That'll let us know if it ever freezes or crashes for some reason. And then here in update, we will just ask the main ship what it is, what's its crew. So we don't currently have a main ship. We should though. I'm pretty sure I set this up so that the player has a specific ship that they use. Apparently that was in a different version. So that's what we're going to do now. Public static ship player ship. And that's going to be important for us in terms of getting this to actually make sense. So if player ship equals null, we'll just take the first ship. Debug.log player ship is assumed to be, and then our name, and then we set it up. So over here we say ship.playership, and we ask it how many crew. Crew manager.total crew. See, that's the number we want. So we're going to just keep track of that. Protected int total crew equals 0. Or -1 is probably a better option here. And then here we say int new crew equals total crew. And if that's different, we update, and if it's not, we don't. So we say if new crew equals total crew, then return. If new crew equals 0, then number text, or otherwise we want to set this up, so total crew equals new crew. If new crew equals 0, then number text equals unmanned. Else number text equals humanize total crew. Well, we'll go ahead and leave off with the humanize. We can do the humanizing later. Because the chances of us having multiple thousands of crew members at this early stage, pretty low. I hope you can't hear me drinking from this iced coffee too loudly. The ice is really surprisingly loud. Mr. Idle just stopped in and did that little O with the hands up thing, which I think is supposed to be cheerful and peppy. I forgot to set this up. Boom. I don't know if Mr. Idle has been here before. I can't remember his name. I'm making a spaceship game. So that's what you're looking at right now. We're working on getting the crew integration to work. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. So let's go ahead and spawn in some crew members. Bunk. And just get rid of that. And it didn't update properly. That's interesting. So it looks like there's something wrong with how it's doing things. Do we have any errors popping up here? No, there's an error, but that is accept mission on ship not implemented. That's fine. We don't need to worry about that anymore. Null reference, object reference not sent. So ship.crewmanager.total crew. So crew text. The ship crew manager isn't working anymore? Is that what this is? Is the problem with the ship crew manager? Crew manager isn't set. Okay, for some reason I didn't set the crew manager. That would explain all of these problems. They are all caused by that happening. Okay, so the words are a little bit off in terms of being too long and stuff, but I just got started with this part, so we're going to have to live with that for a little bit. Mr. Idle, this is his first time watching me stream. If you're not aware, I do a lot of Unity-based stuff on YouTube. So if you're coming over from knowing that, then you probably know roughly what I'm doing. Otherwise, I'm building kind of something that's sort of Star Trek-y. Sort of like The Sims in space. Total crew, 5. Correct! There are 5 crew members. But there's currently no button for us to move this total crew of 5 over into named crew with faces and bodies, which is a shame because faces and bodies are something that exist. Mr. Idle did come over from YouTube and is aware of my existence. Hooray! Although that usually means it's someone following one of my ancient Minecraft tutorials, which really aren't very good. Well, can't do much about that at this stage. If I deleted them, people would definitely complain. So let's take these to text and number, staple them to the upper side, move them up, like this. The number can be wider, but both unmanned and scanning were too long. I think unmanned is probably going to fit now. Yeah, probably. We're going to need a button, though. So let's create a button. Button. Put that down here in... There. There we are, much better. And we can just bring this in, so 5, 5, 20. Yeah, there we are. More than that, maybe. And we'll staple it to the top like this. We'll bring up total crew so that it isn't that tall. We don't need it to be that tall. 60? 60 is good. 57. 57's perfect. All right. Just want to bring it up one notch here. There. And this button is going to be a text override here. Mr. Idle says, do not delete them. They worked for me as a perfect way to start coding in Unity. I'm glad to hear that. The problem is generally that people who want to clone Minecraft don't realize that it's a pretty advanced level project. And so you get people who don't have any coding experience at all trying to code Minecraft and being like, you know, concepts like noise fields and prefabs and stuff like that really, really screw their brains up. They've never encountered them before, and now they're encountering them all at the same time. And they just don't realize that Minecraft is pretty advanced. So we're going to go ahead and instantiate? What do you want to call it? Name one. There we are. The thing about naming one is that we only really want to be able to do this if there are crew left to name. I think we'll just leave it like this for now, and we'll just make the button not actually do anything if you click it when we're out of crew to name. But what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to have this call back to the ship, to the crew manager, all the way out to the individual bunks. And that's going to take a new kind of script, or a new kind of function in one of our scripts. And that's going to be right here in the ship engineering UI. Nope, the crew overview UI. So public void create named crew member. And we're just going to go ahead and have that happen by calling out to ship.playership.crewmanager. And then I don't remember if the crew manager itself has the option to create. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and add a new crew manager option over here. Don't need this. Public void create named crew member, if possible. And what we're going to do is we're going to go through the slots that we've got, and any one of the slots that's not currently engaged, we'll go ahead and use that one. So for each crew slot in slots, if slot.current avatar equals null, then tell the slot to spawn an avatar, generate avatar, and return. Otherwise, debug.log out of bunks cannot spawn new character. To do, put on screen. There we go. So that should work. Shall we find out? First, we need to set it up. So this one will be create crew member if possible. There we are. And then up here, we're going to link the button back to that function. That's not too hard to do. You just have to remember how Unity works, because if you don't remember how Unity works, you will get super confused about how to hook things up. There, clickety. Okay, so let's go ahead and play. Unmanned, can't name anything, so we're gonna just go ahead and ship info, load ship, handsy. I've been loading the same ship over and over. That's fine. Create our crew bunk here. We got an error over on this side, which we'll resolve later. But now we see crew 5, name one, and boom, we got someone who's named. For some reason, it looks like the portraits slid over to the left, but the basic premise is intact. You can see we can name our 5 crew, and down here they show up as actual people in the room. Perfect. So we got a couple of bugs, a couple of errors. One is that this name 1 button needs to be grayed out if there are no people to name. I changed my mind about making it just do nothing. I want it to actually gray itself out. So what we're going to do here is public bool any crew bunks available. And we're going to want to have the crew manager tell us that. So public bool any crew bunk available. Same deal here. Return true, return false. Return ship.playership.crewmanager.any crew bunk available. Otherwise, if ship.playership equals null, return false. All right, so here what we're going to do in update is we're going to say if we're going to need to actually set up the button here. Public button crew name name crew button. We're going to say if name crew button does not equal null, if name crew button dot enabled equals or does not equal any crew bunk available, name crew button. It's not actually enabled that we want though, is it? Yeah, it is. It's interactable. Interactable. That's what we want. Equals not name crew button dot interactable. There we go. That should do the trick. It will turn off the button when you don't have any crew that you can create. But we do have to set it up so that the button exists. Hit play. See how that's grayed out now? I think we can make that gray out a lot more epic, but let's go ahead and make sure that it works first. So let's load up a ship. The Agrippa. Kaboom. Yep, it works. But let's go ahead and make that text, make that button super obvious when it's grayed out. So here you can see that we do a color tint. The normal color is this white. Highlighted color is fairly white. You can't really tell that it's highlighted, so we'll give it this gold tone. The pressed color will make it red so that you really know that you're pressing something. And the disabled color, we're going to go ahead and make that this kind of ugly brown. So now you can tell much more substantially it's not going to be clickable. Unfortunately, when you are color tinting the button, the text does not get color tinted with you. So when we set this button to be more transparent or less transparent, that doesn't affect the transparency of the text within the button. So it's always going to say name 1 in that sharp lettering, even if we don't want to name 1 anymore. There are a couple of ways around that, all of which are kind of obnoxious. One of the things we can do is that instead of just tinting the target graphic here, we could tint the text, but we can only tint one or the other. We can't tint both. It's a real shame. But now, for now, we'll just live with it. So let's go ahead and ship info, load ship the slugger. Spawn in that bunk. Definitely need to work on some of that stuff there. There, got 5. Name 1. Clickety. That's right. I forgot to actually fix the offset. So if we go back out to the portrait mask, you can see that it is set pretty far to the side here. I'm not sure why. for some reason, the objects with... Oh, you know what it is? It's the animation. I've got an animation that moves this portrait mask, and you can see how it moves it from here. So we do have to adjust this so that it is off to the side. That's the problem with using animations, is that sometimes they don't work right. You've got to worry about whether or not they are functioning properly. So there we are. That should do. Min-max or shrink. The other one is min-max or grow, I think. But I think that in this case it's just a reverse. I don't think we have to worry about it. But let's go ahead and make sure by spawning in a ship and doing all this jazz and making it work. Let's create some crew. It's in the right spot now. Good. What happens if we shrink it? And then we grow. But we did have to edit this animation anyway because we need to get rid of some of these elements. The total crew, for example, needs to go away. Rather than having it holographically wipe like the rest, I'm just going to have it drop off the bottom. This image rotation, we can just remove it because that image no longer is named the same thing, but we'll put it back in a minute here. So what we're going to want is to take this total crew, this whole scroll panel here, not just the total crew. We're going to want to drop this entire thing off the bottom, but in order to do that, we're going to want to have it over here. So just take the Y and height. No, not height. Position Y. Down off the bottom. So here we want the position Y to be 5, and then it just drops off the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and edit the curve on that because I don't like this double smooth jazz. Let's go ahead and break this and then adjust it as we see fit. Nice fast drop off. Yeah, that should do. The other thing we want to do, is to have it spin this little arrow around. And that did that before. It did that previously. But one of the issues was that we renamed the button and moved it, and that broke it. So, boom. And what we're going to want to do is actually take this rotation and move it to, like, here. There, that should do. Save that. Yeah, that should work. I don't know why that... Well, it doesn't really matter. Bye, Eva Luigi. I'm going to miss you. All right, let's go ahead and put some faces in there and see it happen. You notice that it's kind of in front of stuff. I haven't really decided how I'm going to handle that. But in the end, it's something that can be easily adjusted later, so I'm not too worried about it. For some reason, I can still click. It shouldn't still be clickable. Huh. That's interesting. We'll have to fix that later, I guess. That's actually pretty good. I like it. What do you think, guys? Now that you've all left. So after an hour and a half, what we've managed to do is integrate the crew so that you can have an arbitrary number of crew members with an arbitrary number of them named. You can have teams of crew members in the future. That's not quite ready yet. And you have a cool animation for when you shrink them and grow them. I think that that's quite feasible, done fairly well. There are still too many bugs to release this. There are a lot of bugs which you may have noticed, but we're going to go ahead and work them out. Mr. Idle didn't leave yet. I may leave before he gets a chance to because I've been talking for an hour and a half. My voice is getting a little bit squeaky, but I'll be back on Saturday and again on next Wednesday. So feel free to stop by again. I'm going to spend a little bit more time taking screenshots and stuff, so feel free to tell me any questions that you have or anything similar. Let's go ahead and just name a couple of crew members here. You got some people who look pretty similar to other people. That's fine. I'll go ahead with this. Shoop. Now, can we hide that red F1? Help is busted. Definitely going to need to work on that. So there's something wrong with help. Write that down on my little book here. Help is broken. All right, Mr. Idle, hopefully I will see you around. Oh, of course help is broken. I turned it off. Never mind, cross that off the list. Help should work fine now. So we turn on our hiding the grid there, and that means that when we load up our beautiful red planet ship, then we end up with no weird colored backdrops. Put in 2 bunk rooms, like this. And what we'll do is just take some crew shots here. Got some very, very similar crew members this time through. We'll have to get a wider variety of possible crew variants as time goes on. Looks like some looks like some of this stuff is syncing up rather badly. That might be the fault of the shuffler. Well, we'll work on it later. All right, well, first things first, let's go ahead and delete the video saying I'm streaming, because otherwise YouTubers might show up. And that was fine an hour ago, but it's not fine now. Oh, I got a couple of people saying things on Twitch or on Twitter. Well, so my stream is basically over. I'm just gonna punch in a couple of screenshots to Twitter. I made the crew integration much better. Now you can have an arbitrary number of red shirts, and I laid the basis for much more complex stuff. Oh, I don't have any room for any hashtags. You can have an arbitrary number of red shirts and laid some prep for later. All right. Thank you for stopping by, everybody. I will see you on Saturday or maybe next Wednesday, and that's it for today.